Hi, I'm Ruben Navarrette. Welcome back to the Latino Paradox. I'm here with my friend Arnold Torres. We talk about the issues of the day from a Latino perspective. And we wrestle with this question: why is it that Latinos have such a presence in this country, 54 million of us, and lack real political power? Our discussion today, and certainly discussion all week in the media, has been over healthcare. And the news of the day is the passage by the Republicans of a GOP healthcare bill that critics say will kick people off of their healthcare plans, deny them healthcare coverage, all to pave the way for tax cuts for the rich, as they say. Arnold, this was an unseemly, to me and to a lot of folks, an unseemly display yesterday. The Republicans passed a House bill by one vote, only one vote, yet they had a victory lap at the White House where they were literally Republican members of Congress bust into the White House, and they gathered for this victory lap in the Rose Garden. And I was probably not the only one struck by the fact that you had a bunch of middle-aged white people, white men in particular, standing around a microphone, maybe prematurely celebrating a bill that might never even make it through the Senate. So what did you make of that? And what do you think it portends for the Latino community?
Well, I think it's a very disappointing, but it really underscores the difficulty of American politics today. Regardless of who you're talking about, the populists, the Republican, or the Democrats, you're celebrating a political victory when you're kicking people off of health coverage. That's what's amazing. And then the logic that's being followed. And these are not partisan statements on my part. I work in healthcare. I represent a lot of community health centers. The consequences to working poor will be devastating for California. An estimated 5 million low-income people will be kicked off the rolls. This is really a very, very serious consequence to American society, especially to Latinos, because we're always the last hired, first fired. We're the last that come onto the system, and we're going to be the first that will go off the system. So it's very, very. The optics are, it really does underscore the problem with American politics. What is the motivation? It's politics. It's not the policy. Because you're going to have millions of people that will not have coverage anymore. So and that's going to cause deaths and a very, very sad life for many.
I don't think it's that simple. I have been confused, and I've said this before. The healthcare bill debate had the effect of, you could sit me down, a couple weeks ago in front of the television for 30 minutes, watching the treatment of the media's treatment on this issue. And after the 30 minutes, I was more confused than when I started. I knew less at the end than I did at the beginning. And I think the reason was you have a lot of dishonest reporting on the issue. You have, for instance, today complaints that, guess what, there were Republicans who voted for this bill who never read it. Wow, my God, that's shocking, the media says. I've never heard of such a thing. Really? We had a whole debate on Obamacare where Democrats voted for a bill of equal size, of equal importance, without ever reading it. And you had Nancy Pelosi, in fact, come forward and say at the time, the Democratic leader, well, sometimes you have to pass a bill to see what's in it. What sense does that make?
But I'm not going to defend the media because the reality is
what I'm saying is this is not just a media critique. This is about confusing the public. Because when the public hears both narratives, it's very difficult to come away. I heard somebody say in a simple narrative, we're going to kick people off of their plans. Less people are going to have health care, and it's going to be to pave the way for a tax cut for the rich. Sounds fine. But then I heard Republicans come forward and say, hey, that whole narrative about people losing coverage, that's not true. That's fake news. And so now both sides are debating that, and I'm confused as to the reality. I know that Obamacare was equally bad in many cases. It's imploding in different states. States are pulling out of it. So,
but here's the reality. And the reality is that with Obamacare, as much as I did not like the approach that he took in that bill and that Congress took in that bill, because it failed to acknowledge the shortage of providers and the fact that even if you had insurance, you still were going to have difficulty getting providers, especially for Latino community who doesn't have Spanish-speaking providers, and that's a very serious problem for us. The reality is that with Obamacare, you added people to coverage. That's the significance. You were providing coverage for people that historically had not had it. And I can tell you, if you look at every community health center in the state of California, the number of people that are uninsured that are coming into their clinics went down significantly because of the Medicaid expansion and because of Obamacare.
Let's look at that.
In this version of the bill, you have people that were once kind of going to be able to come in and starting to come in for care are not going to have that care. There's a very, very big
let's
difference.
look at that. Well, let's look at that. Let's say that under the old plan, Obama said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That was not true. He said, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That was not true. If you lost either your doctor or your plan under Obamacare, then how can we argue that you didn't lose your health care? If they said, for instance, let's say they said that you have a new plan, the deductibles are going to be higher than the old plan. So you look at the deductibles and you decide you're not going to go to the doctor. It's voluntary, but you decide you're not going to go to the doctor for this ailment. Or you get a doctor that's so much further away that you don't go to the doctor that often. It seems really dramatic when we think about the idea of cutting people off so they don't have health care. It's kind of the death of 1,000 cuts by 1,000 cuts when you say we're going to make it so difficult for you to get health care that you're going to end up with no health care anyway. So
but the reality is that Obamacare was nowhere close to being perfect. There were a lot of problems from the very, very beginning.
That's a nice way of putting it. That's a real nice way of putting it. States are pulling out of it.
The problem, but the thing that's really the difficulty is that you have people in the press that are not necessarily in the press making a lot of comments, and you have people in the press that are making comments and offering opinions, and oftentimes these are about politics. These aren't about policy.
Right.
And I think that's the very, very significant difference.
True.
You always are talking about the politics of it, and you don't, people aren't being told what the facts are about what's really going to take place. I mean, that's why that CBO report would have been very important to have before they voted on this bill.
That's true in every issue. In every issue you talk about, in immigration, in the border wall, you're absolutely right that the media tends to focus too much on politics and not enough on policy. You also have members of the press who don't understand this issue because it's such a complicated issue. And maybe they do need to talk to more doctors and nurses and practitioners who would have their own view about this. If you did more reporting and less talking in the media, if we still had an old media where you would actually go out there with a microphone and talk to doctors and find out what they think about it, the system, and how to fix it, as opposed to what we have now, which is Jeffrey Lord arguing with Van Jones on CNN, and that's what you tune into. You don't learn it. That's an important point. You don't learn anything from those debates and those ugly, circus acts that we have now. So, in that regard, it's true. You can fault the media for not educating the public. You can also fault the members of Congress for not caring enough to educate themselves over this stuff.
That's right.
So
that's right, because for them, everything Obamacare was a political football,
right?
And that's what it was. And the sad thing is that you had Democrats on the floor of the House singing Stevie Wonder's, "Bye Bye" song, la la la, and so again a political victory, because they're going to kick out a lot of Republicans.
This is how we go. I mean, to have the same Democratic leader I talked about before, Nancy Pelosi, who once said we have to pass the bill in order to see what's in it, to then turn around and say you're going to glow in the dark over this, you're going to own this gleefully. It tells me that she doesn't care about policy any more than the next person. She cares about the fact that this is going to hurt the opposition. Let me put our questions to you. The questions we always come to. What is the healthcare debate this week in the passage of this GOP healthcare bill say about Latinos, about where we are as a community, about who we are as a community, about what we want, and what are we doing wrong?
Well, as a community, who we are is a community that continues to have very, very serious problems to access to care. When you factor in the undocumented population that are occupying phenomenally important roles in this economy today, which is really beyond what anybody has really written about, is the importance that we occupy in agriculture and the service industry and virtually every key industry in this country. The reality is that we are people who are still left out of that mainstream. For us, the problems that we've had generationally are still with us.
What do we want?
Access
and what
to
do we
care.
want? What's the next question? What do we want?
What we want is a system that's responsive to the absolute healthcare needs that we have, which we've never been able to get. We have never arrived at a point. The closest we got was under this system, but even then there wasn't a doctor. What are we doing wrong? What we're doing wrong is that we don't prioritize healthcare as a policy issue. We have never really prioritized healthcare as a major priority issue. Everything we live by and die by is immigration.
I like it.
And it's very, very sad to show you how impotent we are. The role of us in this economy, and you had the key, every Republican member in the House in California voted for this bill.
So here's what I think. Here's what I think it says about it. It says we are a community that's underserved, that has healthcare needs that are very real in terms of diabetes and stroke and heart disease and the like. And we are not getting enough adequate health coverage and health care for that. On top of that, who are you kidding? You know how we are. You know our gente. Even when you give them health coverage, you can't get my abuelo to go to the doctor. You can't get my tío to go to the doctor. That's a whole different issue. That's a cultural issue, okay? I'm right there with them in many cases. Latinos do not like to go to the doctor, even when we have the coverage. You know,
Latinos.
Forget it. You better believe it. They talk about all these screening and tests that need to be done. You know, after 50, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Not with my tío, okay? So that's the first. The second one, in terms of what we want to be healthy, and we want better options, and we want to know that we can go to the doctor. We should be able to go to the doctor. We have that right to do so and the opportunity to do so. And we want better representation in Washington. I think we should want that. That's more responsive to that. And lastly, what are we doing wrong? I would say this. We have said on public opinion polls that we value a healthcare reform. It's always one of the top three. It's healthcare and education and jobs in the economy. We actually put healthcare above immigration. But we don't translate that. See, to go back to your point, we don't translate that into real action. We say that healthcare is important to us, but we don't vote that way. You wouldn't know it from the way we vote.
Right.
Anyway, hey, it's been great to be with you again. Thanks all of you joining us from the Latino Paradox. Until next time, I'm Ruben Navarrette with my friend Arnold Torres.